Hello, everyone. We are now live. It is 3 o'clock, and welcome to our PowerBack Live. Today, we are talking about healthy, unhealthy, or abusive, and how to know. So, thank you all so much for coming on and joining us today. If you're here, give us a comment in the chat now with Joe. If you have any questions about our topic today, please feel free to write them in the chat. Hello, Joe.
Hey, Carrie, how's it going?
Good. How are you?
Good. Still get okay, this will work.
Yes, it will. It will. Hello, everyone. I'm Carrie Spicer, and I'm here with the one and only
Joe Mondi.
And we are part of the PowerBack program to educate, empower, and help teens in dating abusive relationships. So let's talk about our topic today: when relationships are healthy, unhealthy, or abusive, and how to know.
Great. Yeah. And before we start, I just want to kind of put out there really quick. This is going to be my last Instagram live. I'm going to be leaving the PowerBack program, unfortunately, but it has been a real pleasure and an honor to be able to do these as frequently as we do, and to just go through this kind of information and really educate on this subject, because it is super important, and it really just has been great. So just wanted to throw that out there, and I'm gonna miss everybody, and you too, Carrie. So
we are going to miss you so
anyway,
much. So.
Thanks. So let's start with talking about healthy relationships. So this entirely, we want to be able to give you tools to be able to assess your relationship, assess what relationships should and shouldn't look like, what works for you, what doesn't, and ultimately get to talking about abusive relationships. But we want to start with healthy relationships here. So let's talk about some aspects that make a healthy relationship. So what do they look like? Two people with independence, their own independence, right? Supporting each other's individuality, encouraging each other to be individual. I have my own friends, you have your own friends, I have sports that I play, you have sports that you do or watch or whatever, all these things that make us two individuals that are in a relationship encouraging one another. We talk about respect. We've actually talked about respect on here, respecting each other's boundaries, treating people the way that you want to be treated, that golden rule. We talk about value, valuing your partner for, again, who they are, their uniqueness, their good and bad qualities. Well, I don't say bad, but their
Unique.
positive and their unique qualities. Let's just say that. So we talk about trust. Trusting your partner is vital. It's very important. It's literally the foundation of any healthy relationships, to trust, having open communication, being honest in your communication, communicating what your wants are, what your desires are, in a way that is, I don't want to use the word open again, but that, allows a sense of comfort and safety with one another. So feeling safe, being yourself, things like that, and encouraging the other to also feel that way in the relationship.
Yeah, feeling free to be who you are.
Right.
In front of your partner. Yeah, agreed. And when we're talking about what unhealthy characteristics might look like, so I think the best example of this is a couple who is constantly nagging or bickering at each other back and forth. They kind of have an unhealthy relationship dynamic, but they are still able to control their own actions, right? They control themselves and their own actions. So they do whatever it is that they want to do. They're not afraid to tell their partner to stop. They're not being controlled by their partner. They can leave the relationship if they want to. There isn't a sense of authority of one person over the other. And they can leave the relationship without fear if they want to, right? And so if you're in an unhealthy relationship, no, you might want to consider the severity and the consistency of those unhealthy behaviors and whether or not that's the kind of relationship that you want and deserve.
Absolutely. Like we said, constantly assessing that, right? Or I won't say constantly, but assessing when necessary. We may be looking at in an unhealthy relationship, two people, one or two people that doesn't communicate effectively with one another. Like we said, in a healthy relationship, there's that sense of open communication, but maybe they're just lack in, communication skills, or there's poor problem solving skills when something goes wrong. Um, One or both people are not attentive to one another. Like we said, attentive to their needs, what they want, what their desires are. They're not listening. They're not communicating. We're talking about people who may not be expressing how they feel. We said not comfortable talking or expressing yourself for whatever reason. Maybe they just feel this. There's a sense of discomfort when you even try, right? If they're not expressing concerns or worries, maybe a big issue too, because we could be looking at somebody who is, has some sort of negative behavior going on. Let's say like a substance abuse problem, right? If somebody is abusing drugs or something like that, and the other person in the relationship isn't even talking about it. I mean, the substance abuse problem is a problem on its own, but if we're not communicating about it to get better, you may be actively encouraging it in a sense. So if you're not able to do that, again, this may look like a unhealthy relationship. And the last thing being just dishonesty. If one or both people in the relationship are being dishonest with the other, how are you going to have that trust? And once it's broken, I think we know that it's difficult to rebuild that sometimes. So, if you're seeing dishonesty in your relationship, that, obviously we could be looking at an unhealthy relationship.
Yeah. And along with what you were saying about not expressing concerns or worries, in an unhealthy relationship, maybe one partner is just supporting the other in bad decisions, right? So if one person is like, oh, okay, I'm gonna skip school today, and the other person's like, oh, okay, yeah, I'll skip school too with you, right?
Yep.
And they're just they're not afraid of each other, but they're also not helping each other in that way either.
Right. So now that we've talked about healthy relationships, which has the sense of all these things that uplift you and make you happy, we've talked about unhealthy relationships, which are things that just don't work. That probably, almost certainly, do not work for you. There's not communication. There's there could be nagging, there could be fighting, there could be all these things, but not necessarily these harmful negative consequences, which leads us to abusive relationships, which I think, put last because it's its own sort of real monster here that we really want to make sure that we define properly. So, Carrie, I'll throw that to you. How do we define dating abuse?
Well, yeah, I think we define dating abuse as a pattern of behavior used to gain control and maintain power over one partner, to instill a fear of negative consequences. So let's kind of break that down, right? Let's talk first about the pattern. So this is something that is happening more than once, right? It's a pattern of behavior. It's reoccurring. It's not just a single argument. It's kind of showing up, consistently throughout the relationship. And it's a pattern of behavior, right? But specifically abusive behavior. So what are the different types of abusive behavior that we can talk about here? There's physical abuse, there's emotional abuse, there's verbal abuse, sexual abuse, financial abuse, all of those different types of abusive behaviors. So we see patterns of abusive behaviors that reinforce fear of a negative consequence. So when we're talking about fear of a negative consequence, that can be, that doesn't necessarily have to be your partner being afraid that they are going to be hit by one partner being afraid that they're going to be hit by the other partner. But it could be, I'm afraid to express my feelings because of how my partner is going to respond. Or I'm afraid that my partner will start a fight if this happens, or I'm afraid that this is going to bring tension, or this is going to cause additional problems in the relationship, equating to being controlled, like additional restrictions. It's really anything that one partner does to change their behavior in order to meet the demands or expectations or requirements of their partner.
Right. And we look at the behavior of, or I should say, the overall feeling of one of the abusive partner trying to maintain control over their victim, the other person in the relationship, right? So your partner is telling you what to do, and therefore not allowing you to make your own decisions without having permission from them or consulting with them. You necessarily will feel unsafe physically, mentally, emotionally, perhaps sexually. And of course, this results in a loss of power. There is this power dynamic where one person has all the power, they are driving the ship, and the other person does not. They have lost completely their autonomy, their individuality, like we said, in a healthy relationship that you're supposed to have. And there's this sense of isolation, where you're being isolated from your own life, or your friends, or your family, or just things that you actually want to do, or whatever like that. I got a little lost there, but and necessarily it's harmful to you. Obviously, it goes without saying. But in an abusive relationship, there is actively harm being done to you.
Yeah, and I think too, it's important in abusive relationships, and especially if you're assessing, where your relationship is falling, to understand that sometimes abusive behaviors can come in slowly, right? So they can look like a slow loss of power, or slow increase in isolation, pulling you away from friends or family, or not allowing you to talk to certain people, things like that can happen, slowly. But what happens in abusive relationships is things tend to progress and get worse as they go on. So it can sometimes start off slow, but as the relationship continues, these things are showing up more often, right? So that's like the pattern of behavior that we're talking about.
And if you're not sure, if you think you may be in this situation, somebody in this situation, and you're not sure, try to ask yourself the question, or do ask yourself the question: what would happen if? Start with that in the beginning. What would happen if I did the thing that my partner said I'm not allowed to do? What would happen if I posted that thing on whatever that they said I'm not allowed to post? Or if I wear the clothes that I like to wear that they said I'm just not allowed to wear? If I didn't ask permission first before I did something, that thing that they are trying to maintain control over, what would happen if I did that? And if the answer is there would be consequences like physical abuse, sexual abuse, emotional abuse, some sort of financial abuse, if that's the answer, and obviously there's a pattern of that, we're definitely looking at an abusive relationship. And it's really important to ask yourself this question. If you feel like you're in that situation, ask yourself, how will my partner make me feel if I did these things, right? So yeah. Really important to keep that in mind.
I want to add one more thing too, because I think that's important, is really that, like, fear is the tipping point, right? So if you feel afraid to talk to your partner about a certain situation, or if you're afraid of how they're going to respond, that is would signify an abusive relationship.
Absolutely. Yep. I totally agree with that. So, the effect that you're, looking at the overall effect that your partner's collective behaviors have on you is really the defining factor in determining, whether the relationship is healthy, whether it's unhealthy or whether it is abusive. Like you said, fear being that real tipping point there.
Yes. And if you're still not sure, the best idea is to run it by someone who's specifically trained in abusive dynamics so that they can really help you to determine where your relationship stands. And you can contact us. You can call the National Dating Abuse Helpline number, which is 1-866-331-9474, or text Love Is to 22522, or visit their website, loveisrespect.org. We hope that this was helpful in deciphering the differences between healthy, unhealthy, and abusive relationships. We hope you are all doing well and have an outstanding summer, safe and healthy summer. And thank you, Joe, again, for all of your time and your work and dedication to the PowerBack program.
Thank you. And I wanted to say that too. Thank you so much for the PowerBack program. You, Carrie, and Allison, and Gloria, and Jesse, and, everyone who's been involved. It's, like I said, anything that we've educated on the teams for, I've learned so much in my time being here. So again, it's so important, and I'm so glad I have this information now to take with me and, to keep educating and everything like that. So thank you. And thank you, everybody, for watching.
Thank you, Joe. We appreciate you.
All right. Bye, Carrie.
Have a great Friday and a great weekend.